Once upon a time in Austria, a story unfolded that would chill the world to its core. A man named Josef Fritzl locked his own daughter in a basement for 20 furlong years. He fathered 7 children with her, all while keeping them hidden in unspeakable conditions. There were no witnesses, no undeniable evidence, and bizarrely no bodies. Picture this: a quaint village in Austria, seemingly untouched, where secrets festered behind closed doors. On the surface, Josef appeared to be just another ordinary father. Local residents spoke highly of him. He was the man who greeted everyone with a smile, who helped his neighbors with their chores. But beneath that calm exterior, a nightmare bloomed, one that would baffle the world. The story began in 1984 when Elizabeth, barely a teenager, was lured into the basement of her own home under a sinister pretext. Josef had convinced her he was merely protecting her from the outside world. With a swift maneuver, he locked her away, pulling the lever on the door that would seal her fate. But the tension didn't stop there. In a bizarre twist, the authorities were utterly oblivious. How could a man hide something so horrific in plain sight? For years, authorities swept the case under the rug. Neighbors claimed they heard nothing. Not a scream, not a cry for help. How was it possible? Moving forward to 1997, the locals noticed something chilling. Elizabeth was supposed to be out in the world, leading a normal life, but there was an unexplainable absence. The children, 7 in total, remained hidden, while the townsfolk gossiped about the mysterious family that never came out to play. Josef spun a tale as confounding as his behavior. He claimed that Elizabeth had run away, just vanished. But even more shocking were the inconsistencies in his story. Every time a question arose, his explanations seemed rehearsed, almost robotic. The police, scratching their heads, found themselves chasing ghosts. So, what exactly did he have to hide? Fast forward to 2008. The yawning jaws of fate were ready to snap shut. In a shocking twist of events, one of Josef's daughters, Kirsten, fell gravely ill. In a stroke of desperation, Josef was forced to take her to the hospital. For the first time, the outside world would catch a glimpse of the horrors he'd long buried. At the hospital, the truth began to seep through the cracks. Medical staff noticed something alarming. Kirsten was malnourished, and she had spent her early years that should have been filled with laughter and freedom locked away. The doctors raised the alarm, and suddenly, the facade of the affable father began to crumble. But here's where it gets even twistier. When authorities confronted Josef about the children, he maintained a chilling calm. He claimed they had been abandoned children he'd taken into care for. There were no facts, only unsettling reassurance. His answers were eerily composed, as if he had rehearsed this manipulation countless times before. As investigators dug deeper, they stumbled upon chilling evidence hidden within the dungeon's walls: cages, chains, and even makeshift beds. But how could a man commit such a horrendous act and appear so normal in public? An everyday father, yes, but also a monster lurking behind a friendly smile. With each passing hour, the horrifying details spilled out like dark ink across a pristine page. When Elizabeth was finally rescued, her story shocked the world. She spoke of her captivity, the abuse, and the tragic births. The 7 children had never seen the sun, never breathed fresh air beyond the suffocating confines of that basement. Here was the reality, dark and twisted, far beyond the imagination. And yet, as the world turned its gaze toward this unfathomable cruelty, questions lingered. How could this go on for so long? Why did no one see the signs? It was as if he had been conducting a symphony of oblivion, with everyone playing their part without the faintest clue. Psychologists began to analyze Josef's behavior. What drove him to this depth of depravity? Could it be the twisted desires locked inside? Was it power, control, sheer madness? Theories flourished, but nothing laid bare the unsettling truth. As the sun set on this disturbing chapter, the trial began. The courtroom echoed with gasps as more details emerged, each one more morbid than the last. Witnesses recounted Elizabeth's ghostly figure, the shadow of a life snatched away by her own father. There were whispers of emotional manipulation, gaslighting, and an impossible reality that left everyone reeling. Just when you thought you'd unraveled the chilling crimes of Josef Fritzl, fate had one more card to play. The courtroom was still buzzing from Elizabeth's heart-rending testimony, but something else was bubbling beneath the surface, waiting to erupt. As the trial reached a fever pitch, a crucial piece of evidence was introduced: diaries, handwritten notes discovered inside that dark, damp basement. The moment they entered the courtroom, they sent shockwaves through the spectators. The chilling words, penned by Elizabeth during her captivity, revealed a narrative that was almost too horrifying to comprehend. She had charted not just her daily life in darkness, but also her fear and desperation as each child was born into that nightmarish reality. Then, the room went silent, as the judge began to read from the diary. A gasp escaped the lips of the audience. Elizabeth wrote of dreams where she imagined escaping, where she yearned to feel sunlight on her skin. Each entry grew more desperate, filled with longing and sorrow. But hidden within those pages was a shocking twist. There were signs that someone knew. The prosecution leapt on this revelation. They began hypothesizing that someone outside the walls had to have seen or heard something. It couldn't have been possible for Josef to maintain absolute secrecy. But who? Family members, neighbors? And that's when the twists became a whirlwind. Someone stepped forward. A distant relative, a cousin of Josef's, claimed she had seen unusual activity around the Fritzl household years before the capture. This cousin, Anna, had a chilling account. "I often heard cries when I passed the house on my way to work. I thought it was the television, but now I wonder if it was something more sinister." The courtroom was electric, charged with anticipation. Could it be that this intricate web of deceit had ensnared others? Was there, in fact, a secret collaboration in this malevolent game? Just when the prosecution believed they had the upper hand, an unforeseen whisk turned the trial upside down. Josef's defense team, always 3 steps ahead, introduced a bombshell of their own. Josef was not the sole architect of this torment. They claimed that Elizabeth had been complicit. Yes, complicit in a dark pact that spanned back to her teenage years. Atmosphere shifted as the words hung in the air. The defense painted a twisted portrait of Elizabeth as a willing participant, suggesting that her claims of abduction were simply a part of a broader, more convoluted psychological game. According to them, she had harbored a desire to escape her mundane life, even resorting to manipulation to elicit sympathy from those around her. But this new narrative sent waves of disbelief through the audience, and disbelief quickly morphed into outrage. How could anyone comprehend that Elizabeth might have had a role in her own madness? The public grappled with these daunting questions, their unity beginning to splinter under the strain of media sensationalism. And then came the ultimate revelation: a letter. A letter found among Elizabeth's belongings after her rescue would collapse the carefully orchestrated narrative of both sides. It had been hidden away for years, a desperate note written by Josef himself. In his own handwriting, he detailed his rationale behind the horrific actions, his possessiveness over Elizabeth, and how he viewed her not merely as his daughter but a pawn in a disturbing fantasy. But the most shocking revelation? He claimed he had been keeping her safe from the world and she wanted it that way. Suddenly, it was all too much. The clear lines between victim and perpetrator blurred until they were almost indistinguishable. The courtroom became a battleground lined with conflicting realities. Whispers rose among the audience, amplifying the tension with each whisper of betrayal and fear. the very foundation of truth began to crack. The jury was left pondering to haunting possibilities. Was Joseph an deranged monster? Or was Elizabeth acting out a grievous charade to avoid facing her reality? Could such madness ever be understood? As both sides fought tooth and nail for their beliefs, the stakes escalated. Then, as the chaos brewed to a climax, yet another plot twist unfolded. New evidence emerged. One of the 7 children, a daughter nicknamed Anna, had escaped her prison of silence. She had overheard conversations between Joseph and Elizabeth while locked away, snippets of which spun a tale of dueling wills and a shocking revelation overlooked until then. Joseph had threatened Elizabeth's life if she ever attempted to escape. The courtroom gasped in unison. Anna described how Joseph would whisper in the dark, using her mother's own fears like weapons, molding Elizabeth's psyche until she believed she could not survive outside his dominion. It was then that the audience realized this family was caught in a sinister psychological chess game, orchestrated by a manipulator born of nightmares. But just as Anna finished her haunting account, the air turned dicey. The sound of notification alerts buzzed through the packed courtroom. News reports began flashing across screens. There was a critical update. Outside, police had uncovered a hidden cache of tapes, hundreds of hours of recorded conversations between Joseph and Elizabeth. Hidden deep in the basement, the media erupted in a frenzy, speculating about what these tapes could reveal. Was there a confession within? Evidence of manipulation, coercion, or something far darker? Then came the note, a chilling cliffhanger etched in the minds of everyone present. You thought you knew the truth, but you'll never escape what lies beneath. As murmurs filled the room, signaling the close of the day's proceedings, the trial faced a turning point. What dark secrets rested within those tapes? And would the truth finally rise to the surface? Or would it slip back into the forbidding shadows? Just when it seemed like the curtain had risen on the chilling truths of Josef Fritzl's case, a new chapter awaited. The courtroom buzzed with anticipation as they awaited the revelation of the tapes, hours of recorded conversations that could either vindicate Elizabeth or seal her father's fate. This was it, the moment everyone had been waiting for. As the judge called for order, the air crackled with tension. Lawyers were poised, the jury alert, and the audience sat on the edge of their seats, hearts pounding, minds racing fast. Would this new evidence break the dam, releasing the flood of truth, or deepen the murky waters of deceit? The recordings were played in court for the first time, the chilling voices echoing around the room. The first clip began. The voice was unmistakable. It was Joseph, eerily calm. You are mine, Elizabeth. No one else can keep you safe. This world, it will hurt you. An uneasy gasp rippled through the crowd. The conversation continued, fading in and out, a twisted manipulation wrapped in familial love. Elizabeth sounded fragile yet defiant. But I want to see the world. I want to be free. The words were laced with desperation. It was as if every plea drew the audience into the suffocating tightness of that basement cell. Then, shockingly, the tone shifted. Joseph, his voice colder, almost sinister. You know what happens when you try to leave, right? I won't let anything happen to you, not if you do what I say. The courtroom audience shifted uneasily. Elizabeth's face morphed into a mask of anguish as new layers of her trauma were peeled back. It was clear this was not just a story of captivity, but a dark tale of psychological warfare that turned father and daughter into adversaries tangled in a web of fear. Just as the room began to settle, a titanic twist surged forward. One of the jurors, a woman named Carla, jumped up. Your Honor, I know this man. Eyes widened. Could it be? Had this trial branched into an even darker realm? Carla's voice quivered but crackled with purpose. I grew up with Josef Fritzl. He wasn't just an ordinary man, He was a member of a close-knit group known in our village as the Protectors. Gasps erupted. What was this group? The Protectors were rumored to be a clandestine society that believed they were safeguarding the community against external evils. They were infamous for their unorthodox, even violent methods. But Carly's eyes narrowed as she continued. He would recruit people, convince them that their loved ones needed protection from unseen forces. I thought it was all nonsense. Until Elizabeth's story broke. The other jurors exchanged bewildered glances. Were they hearing this right? It sounded more like a twisted conspiracy than a simple case of kidnapping. The prosecution, sensing a golden opportunity, leapt into action. This group could have been an accomplice, or even worse, a network that enabled Joseph to enact his horrific control over Elizabeth. Suddenly, the courtroom was charged with fear. If there was a larger network behind Joseph, this case extended beyond a father's crime. It smacked of complicity, collusion, and a dark underbelly thriving within the very fabric of their seemingly peaceful community. But just when it seemed like everything was spiraling into chaos, another arresting twist struck like lightning. A surveillance video surfaced from a local pharmacy, revealing a younger Elizabeth shopping for baby supplies while she was supposedly locked away. The footage had timestamps confirming her appearances were several years apart. The whispers grew louder again. Could Elizabeth have orchestrated a part of this? Unfolding the layers of this nightmarish tapestry revealed a revelation so disturbing it silenced the room. Elizabeth had contacted her cousin, Anna, who testified she'd seen her outside the home on multiple occasions, claiming she was on a secret mission orchestrated by Joseph. Suddenly, the walls felt like they were closing in. Was Elizabeth not just a victim but an active participant in a larger game? The tide shifted once more in this labyrinth of twisted truths. As whispers echoed in the courtroom, the prosecution leapt onto this revelation. Your Honor, we cannot ignore these contradictions. Could this be part of a calculated effort by Joseph and Elizabeth to manipulate the outcome of this trial? Gasps filled the court as the dynamic shifted yet again. But just as the detail began to sink in, another bombshell fell. A connection emerged. A prominent member of the Protectors came forward identifying himself as M. He claimed Joseph had recruited him as a way to secure Elizabeth's loyalty, intertwining their fates in a way that was both sinister and unfathomable, and provided chilling testimony, claiming he had conspired with Joseph to keep Elizabeth hidden away as a means of maintaining control not only over her, but over the narrative that the community believed. Who would have thought? The story that started with a single, horrific secret now seemed to spiral into a web of manipulation involving multiple players, each one more horrifying than the last. Where did fact end and fiction begin? Yet, the suspense didn't even let up. As the courtroom session ended for the day, the judge announced a recess. The spectators were left with more questions than answers. The uncertainty wrapped around everyone like a chilling fog. But just before the gavel struck, a faint murmur reached the audience's ears. A comment whispered among the jurors. Did you hear about the father's connection to the disappearances of other young women in the area? And with that, a new thread unspooled, suggesting that Joseph's crimes were woven into a far more sinister tapestry of disappearances across Austria. Just when it seemed the investigation into Josef Fritzl had revealed the depths of his depravity, a chilling new revelation fractured the very foundation of the case. Could there be other victims? Others whose lives were entwined in Joseph's web of darkness? The courtroom, already tense, was about to erupt once more. As the judge called the court back to session, the air was thick with unease. The last whispered allegations hung heavy. Joseph's connections to missing women asterisk. Already, the atmosphere pulsed with anticipation, and the audience could sense that this was only the beginning. The prosecution sprang into action, eager to capitalize on the mounting evidence. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," the lead prosecutor began, his voice steady but urgent, "we've just scratched the surface of what this man is capable of if he could treat his daughter this way. What horror has he perpetuated across our community?" A report came in from local law enforcement. Another missing person was linked to Josef, a woman named Sophie, who had vanished nearly 2 decades ago. According to police records, she had been last seen leaving a local grocery store. Witnesses reported that she had been seen speaking to a man matching Joseph's description. The courtroom gasped in unison. The threads connecting the depths of Joseph's atrocities were tightening into a single, horrifying tapestry. The cracks in the facade of normalcy were widening, and the truth was lurking just beneath the surface. Then, everything spiraled further into chaos. Another witness emerged. A sharp-eyed journalist named Marta had been covering the town's crime scene for years. She claimed to have access to information that linked several unsolved disappearances directly to Josef. "This is bigger than we thought," she asserted. "I have files on at least 5 women who disappeared under similar circumstances, all connected to the protectors." The buzz in the courtroom intensified, and murmurs swept through the crowd, each whisper marking the birth of new fears. What if a serial predator nestled among them? Amid the tumult, the prosecutor rose again. "We request immediate access to the Fritzl family's property. If there are other victims, we might find crucial evidence buried somewhere in that dungeon." His voice trembled slightly, urging the significance of their request. The judge nodded. An investigator was dispatched. As people waited, the courtroom was alive with speculation. What lurked in the shadows of that basement? Minutes turned into hours as the investigation team combed through the Fritzl residence. Tensions welled, the public hungered for answers. Finally, breaking news flashed across the screens. A grim discovery had been made. The investigation team uncovered a hidden room within the already ominous basement, one that had somehow eluded detection until now. Walls lined with photographs, pictures of women, neatly catalogued. Not just Elizabeth, and not just Sophie. Women from various backgrounds, different ages, their smiles hauntingly juxtaposed against the despair of their fate. Josef had been keeping trophies, a gallery of his victims visible only to him, each one a silent reminder of the secrets he held and the lives he had torn apart. The dark implication was clear. Josef Fritzl was not just a criminal, but perhaps a monster, a predator who relished in the pain and suffering he caused. But just as the audience's horror deepened, another twist emerged. An anonymous tip came in, claiming that an ex-member of the Protectors was willing to come forward. This individual, identified only as L, had claimed they had first-hand knowledge of a much larger conspiracy, a shared delusion among group members that protecting women from the world was a noble cause, and that Josef was their unholy leader. The impact of this revelation sent shockwaves throughout the courtroom. Could this help provide insight into a network that extended beyond just Josef? What kind of insidious mind could twist ideology into a justification for such evil? As whispers of L's identity spread like wildfire, the court received yet another bombshell. L was revealed to be none other than a former high school friend of Josef's, a man whose name sent shivers through the community, a man once synonymous with care and protecting the vulnerable. His testimony would not only expose Josef but send ripples that might unravel the entire town's dark history. L arrived at the courthouse, eyes darting nervously as he took the stand. "I was part of the group," he revealed, visibly shaken. "I've seen the darkness. Josef manipulated all of us, convincing us that we were saving people from the dangers of the world. I didn't realize until it was too late. I never wanted to hurt anyone." The courtroom sat in stunned silence, grappling with the realization that the very same man who once sought to protect had unwittingly become complicit in unspeakable horrors. And then, L dropped a final jaw-dropping revelation. Josef used the group to gather intel on women, to carefully choose those he would target. Then came a shattering question: how many of us were involved? The narrative left everyone in the room reeling. It was no longer just a single horrific act. It was a web of deceit and manipulation that ensnared entire lives. As the session ended for the day, conflicting emotions swirled like a storm. As the courtroom sat in stunned silence, reeling from the eye-opening confession of L, a member of the Protectors who claimed Josef Fritzl had orchestrated a larger conspiracy, the atmosphere thickened with fear and anticipation. What other horrors lay hidden, tangled within this web of darkness? The gavel struck, commanding attention. The judge sensed the urgent need to maintain order, but chaotic murmurs swept through the audience like wildfire. How had Josef's actions tangled so many lives, ensnaring friends and innocent bystanders? The implications felt overwhelming. "Your Honor," the prosecution said, stepping forward, his face a mask of determination. "We need to re-examine the entire case against Fritzl in the context of these revelations. We may have a monster whose reach extends far beyond what we initially believed." The judge nodded. The courtroom struck a tense balance between possibility and impending dread. Emil, a local journalist reporting on the trial, could hardly contain his excitement. If L's testimony leads to more victims, it could change everything, he exclaimed, fumbling with his notepad, eager to breathe life into this evolving narrative. But things were about to escalate even further. Just as the prosecution requested access to the other properties connected to Josef, the court received a shocking new lead. An anonymous tip came in citing an abandoned storage unit that supposedly held disturbing contents related to Fritzl's crimes. The courtroom held its collective breath as news broke that investigators had secured a warrant. Officers were dispatched, and it felt like the room had entered a strange time warp. Would they discover more chilling evidence of Josef's terror? Hours passed, and tension mounted as the jury awaited updates. Outside the courthouse, reporters clamored for answers, speculating on what those walls might hold. Could they find more photographs or clues connecting Josef to even more unsolved cases? Would this reveal a larger network of predatory behavior? Finally, a seasoned detective emerged from the shadows, holding a binder thick with reports and images. "We've found something," he announced, drawing the public's focus without hesitation. But it wasn't another victim, it was Josef's journal. Eyes widened in horror as the detective shared its contents, revealing Josef's thoughts, carefully penned entries that traced his manipulative grip on both Elizabeth and the group. Each entry dripped with chilling justification for his actions, revealing a mind twisted by delusion. They mapped out not only his control over Elizabeth but also strategies to influence other women in the group. One entry shocked everyone: "The greater good is at stake. I will guide them to safety, even if they resist. Their eyes will be opened to the perils of this world. I am their protector." Collective gasps echoed in the courtroom as it became clear that Josef had long operated under the delusion that he was acting heroically. But that wasn't all. The detective continued, revealing that inside the journal, a strange, cryptic pattern emerged: names of women noted alongside dates, almost like a twisted log of potential targets. Could it be? Could these names correspond to missing women that authorities had yet to link to Josef? The stakes escalated higher with every revelation, and the walls felt like they were closing in on him. Then came a wild revelation that would send everyone spiraling. Among those names, one was familiar: Sophie. The missing woman last connected to Josef by local police. But then two more names surfaced: Anna and Marta. Wait, those are the names of two individuals closely tied to the investigation. The prosecution spoke hurriedly. This could mean they were being monitored or targeted as well. The air thickened with tension. and uneasiness rippled through the courtroom. Questions exploded like fireworks. Why would Josef have been interested in these women? What malignant draw did they have for a man who lashed out under the guise of protection? But the biggest twist was yet to come. Investigators dug deeper into the names listed alongside Sophie's. They found a connection: commercial properties linked to the Protector's asterisk. Could it be that there was a secret network where Josef wasn't merely acting alone? Just as the implications of the previous entries gnawed at the air, news broke that one of the women, Marta, had gone missing again. After a recent interview regarding the case, panic surged throughout the courtroom. Was she in danger? Was there a larger conspiratorial retaliation at play? As if the universe delighted in chaos, Elizabeth, now rescued and safe, had also heard whispers of a retaliation from the Protectors during her recovery. They might come after you to silence the truth, a fellow resident warned her, a chill gripping her heart. What if the very community she fought to free herself from was harboring others who wished to protect the darkness? In a mad scramble for safety, the courtroom was electrified with urgency. The hunt for Marta had become imperative, but anxiety simultaneously clouded the proceedings. Would police arrive too late? Your Honor, the lead prosecutor urged, it's imperative that we connect the dots now. The truth might endanger lives far beyond this courtroom. That urgency rolled into chaos. Journalists became frantic, scrambling for cell-phone footage and scrambling for details. Everyone wanted answers. Would the investigation uncover more than anyone ever anticipated? And then, a chilling voicemail surfaced. It was from Marta, made just hours before her disappearance. If anything happens to me, I'm near the old factory in the South End. You have to see what I found. It's deeper than anyone knows. The blood chilled in every spectator's veins. With the tight tension overlapping, men and women crammed into the courtroom. They realized they were racing against time. The realization that a hidden detail could unearth a multitude of souls trapped in darkness twisted their minds. The audience's collective heart raced as they listened to the chilling voicemail from Marta, made mere hours before her disappearance. If anything happens to me, I'm near the old factory in the South End. You have to see what I found. It's deeper than anyone knows. This haunting message threatened to open doors that had long been closed, and the clock was ticking. As the courtroom buzzed with dread and urgency, the prosecutor wasted no time. Ladies and gentlemen, we need an emergency response team dispatched to that factory now. This could be the key to unraveling this entire twisted web. The judge nodded in grim approval. Cameras flashed and reporters scrambled for every detail, waiting on the brink of a story that could shock the nation. Meanwhile, whispers among jurors grew louder. Everyone felt that the dark tendrils of this case extended deeper than they had yet uncovered. In a whirlwind of action, law enforcement was mobilized. Blaring sirens echoed through the town as officers raced toward the abandoned factory where Marta had claimed to have found something significant, something that could change everything. But was it too late? Only time would tell. Meanwhile, back in the courtroom. The tension felt unbearable. Elizabeth could barely take it in. Her heart raced, not only for the impending discovery but for the many women whose lives intersected with this tragic narrative. Just then, she received a call from Anna. Elsie. Anna's voice trembled with urgency. I overheard something at the local cafe. Some of the Protectors are making plans. They think Marta's found something important, and they want to silence her. Every spine in the courtroom prickled as knowledge of a potential conspiracy swept through the gathered crowd. Someone was out there, manipulating events from the shadows, coordinating a sinister operation to control the narrative. Or worse, eliminate those who threaten the group's dark secret. Desperation filled the air, yet no one felt more anxious than the prosecutor. His hands trembled as he thought of Marta's fate and the consequences of this unfolding horror. "Your Honor," he declared, "we cannot wait any longer for updates. We need to set up a task force focused solely on the protectors lurking within our community." As worries ran rampant and emotions roiled, a feeling of urgency wrapped its grip around the courtroom. Any ounce of doubt was swiftly drowned out by the urgency of that voicemail. Meanwhile, at the factory, officers swiftly broke through the dilapidated doorway, their flashlights probing the darkness that had long been untouched. Dust motes danced in the beam of light as they moved cautiously, acutely aware of their surroundings. The factory was a graveyard of rusting machinery and memories. Just as they prepared to split into teams, one group checking the upper floors while others moved downstairs, an officer yelped, "Over here!" In a corner shrouded in darkness, they discovered a laptop half buried under a pile of debris. It had been hastily discarded but was still functional. They powered it on and began sifting through files, revealing names and reports that were chillingly familiar. Asterisk, could it be? The officers realized they were accessing records tracking the missing women, linked explicitly to Joseph's pattern. The evidence soared to a new level. This was no longer just a case of kidnapping, it delved deeper into the abyss of human predators. "Everyone, we have a situation," an officer barked through his radio. This could lead us to the victims. But before they could process everything, another sound echoed, a rustling. Asterisk, the realization struck asterisk that they might not be alone. The previous atmosphere of confidence shifted into palpable dread. Within moments, the tension broke as they caught sight of a figure darting through the shadows. Was it an escapee? Or was it one of the protectors trying to thwart the investigation? Back in the courtroom, the prosecutor clutched the edge of the stand, anxiously awaiting updates from the field. Just as he felt hope slipping away, his phone buzzed. A text from the lead officer: "We found something huge, data on missing women directly linked to Joseph. It's deeper than we thought. We need backup." Time seemed to freeze. Could this lead to more women? Desperate to uncover the truth, he glanced at Elizabeth, whose eyes flickered with a mixture of fear and determination. She understood what was at stake. Suddenly, a commotion broke out from the back of the courtroom. One of the jurors collapsed, grasping at their chest. The tension turned into chaos as paramedics rushed toward the scene. A hospital stay ended up colliding with the essence of their situation, sending a powerful emotional jolt tripling through the room. "Get a doctor immediately," shouted the prosecutor, eyes wide as he recognized the chaotic urgency. The courtroom felt like a pressure cooker, adrenaline racing through everyone present. Would they be able to find Marta? Asterisk, back at the factory, officers moved cautiously but determinedly. They had received specific intelligence, all the while being aware of the danger they faced. Just as they began snapping photos of documents linking many more names to the chilling missing persons reports, they heard footsteps approaching. Adrenaline coursed through their veins as they spun around, flashlights flickering into the darkness, but no one was there. Panic settled deep within them. Had they been pursued? Did they truly understand the risks involved? "We need everyone to spread out and cover the exits," an officer shouted, trying to quell the rising fear among his team. Each of them remained palpably aware that the protectors had been hunting other individuals long before they had intervened. And just as he finished, more rustling noises erupted. They moved swiftly, asserting their presence, but what they saw next turned their stomachs. In the dim light, they found a small room that had been concealed behind a false wall. Inside were chilling whiteboards covered with names, diagrams, and connections that indicated a vast network crafted with sinister precision. A web of premeditated capture and psychological manipulation unfolded before them. Suddenly, someone emerged from the shadows. It was Marta. "Marta," one officer called out, relief flooding his voice, but it was quickly tempered by caution. She looked haggard, disheveled, yet there was determination etched into her features. "Help me. "They're coming," she got, an urgent tremor in her voice. But as they moved to extract her, another figure appeared, a shadowy silhouette against the factory backdrop, a member of the Protectors, clearly ready to intervene. In that moment, as the chaos of rescue clashed against the dark intent of the insane, the veil of normalcy shattered. The stakes had never been higher. Subscribe to True Crime and Scene now, else we will be gone.